We spend a massive amount of our lives trying to arrange the outside world so that we can finally feel peaceful inside. We believe that if we can just fix our jobs, our relationships, and our circumstances, the anxiety will disappear. But true peace never arrives through controlling the external world. The Buddha taught that our suffering does not come from what happens to us. It comes from the rapid, almost invisible way our minds react to what happens. Every single second, your brain is coloring your reality with fear, craving, and resistance. If you want to stop hurting, you have to look closely at the projector, not the movie on the screen. Let us explore the Buddhist path to untangling your perception and waking up to the freedom of seeing life as it truly is. Think about what happens when you walk into a room full of people. You might catch someone looking at you with a slight frown. Instantly, a narrative forms in your mind. You decide they are judging you. You feel a sudden tightness in your chest. You might even adjust your posture, look away, and spend the next 20 minutes feeling insecure or defensive. The verdict is delivered instantly. But did you actually see a judgment, or did you just see a facial expression? We love to imagine our minds as crystal clear mirrors, accurately reflecting exactly what is placed in front of them. We believe that when we look out at the world, we are seeing the raw, unedited truth of what is happening. But a much more accurate image of the mind is a restless, never-ending workshop. It is a factory that never powers down, sorting, labeling, framing, and coloring every single second of your waking life, and even continuing its relentless work through your dreams. Every act of perception is deeply tangled with your expectations, your past wounds, and your ingrained habits. By the time an experience actually reaches your conscious awareness, it has already been thoroughly reshaped. The light entering your eyes has already been colored by your current mood. A passing comment has already been turned into a personal attack or a profound compliment. Your body has already braced itself for an impact that might not even exist. This means that whatever you call reality has always arrived through this internal editing bay. No version of life comes to you any other way. You are constantly watching a movie directed by your own memories and fears. The sheer amount of energy it takes to run this internal factory is staggering. It is the reason you can sit perfectly still in a quiet room and still feel utterly depleted by the end of the day. You are not just sitting there. You are defending yourself against imaginary arguments, grieving futures that have not happened, and trying to secure a world that is constantly shifting. The Buddha saw this immense, invisible labor and recognized it as the root of human sorrow. He saw that we are exhausted not by reality, but by our resistance to it and our relentless need to categorize every fragment of it. In modern times, brain research and psychology have started to catch up to this ancient understanding. Scientists now tell us that perception is not a passive reception of sensory signals. It is an active construction. Your brain is a prediction machine. It guesses what is about to happen based on what happened yesterday, and it forces incoming data to fit those predictions. But 2.5 millennia ago, the Buddha did not have access to brain scans or modern neuroscience. His concern was not scientific theory or intellectual debate. His ultimate concern was liberation. He understood that if we do not recognize this editing process, we will remain completely at the mercy of it. We will spend our entire lives fighting shadows on the wall, believing they are monsters. When you finally see this, a profound shift happens. Reality is no longer something you passively meet out there in the external world. It is something you meet intimately within the field of your own seeing, hearing, sensing, feeling, and thinking. That specific field is the exact place where all your anxiety, all your anger, and all your suffering begin. And beautifully, it is the exact place where your freedom becomes possible. If you want to stop feeling so overwhelmed by the world, you cannot wait for the world to stop being overwhelming. You have to step back and observe the director inside your head. You have to catch the mind in the act of building a story. Because the moment you realize you are watching a movie, the movie loses its power to terrify you. You can sit in the theater of your mind, watch the dramatic plot unfold, and simply breathe. In the time when the Buddha lived, ancient India was a landscape filled with spiritual seekers, wandering teachers, and intense philosophical debates. People gathered in the streets and forests to argue about the fundamental nature of the universe. They asked the grand, sweeping questions that humans still ask today. Is the universe infinite or finite? Is there one ultimate substance or many? Does the world end or is it eternal? These debates were passionate, endless, and ultimately, exhausting. They filled the public life of the 5th century BCE much like debates about simulation theory, quantum physics, and artificial intelligence dominate our conversations today. But when people brought these grand metaphysical puzzles to the Buddha, he often responded with silence or gently turned the conversation in a completely different direction. He was not interested in entertaining abstract theories for the sake of intellectual entertainment. He saw that debating the boundaries of the cosmos did absolutely nothing to pull the arrow of suffering out of a human heart. In a famous discourse, the Buddha addressed the question of reality by asking a simple question of his own. What is the all? What is everything that can actually be spoken of and experienced? Instead of painting a massive picture of galaxies and divine realms, he drew a very careful, intimate boundary. He said that the all is simply the eye and the forms it sees. It is the ear and the sounds it hears. It is the nose and what it smells. It is the tongue and what it tastes. It is the body and what it touches. And it is the mind and the thoughts, ideas, and impressions that arise within it. This, he declared, is the all. If anyone claims there is another reality outside of this field of experience, they will not be able to point to it. They will only be repeating words. It is incredibly important to understand what this teaching means. The Buddha was not saying that the physical planet does not exist when you close your eyes. He was not asking anyone to adopt a strange belief that the universe is just a hallucination. He was making a deeply practical point. Whatever you can honestly investigate, whatever can actually hurt you, and whatever can ultimately set you free, only ever appears right here, within your own field of experience. Anything beyond what you can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or think might be a fascinating topic for a late-night conversation, but it cannot be the place where your daily suffering is resolved. Your anxiety does not live out there in the abstract universe. It lives right here, in the way your mind reacts to a sound, a memory, or a physical sensation. When we realize this, our search for peace undergoes a radical transformation. We stop trying to arrange the entire external world to fit our preferences. We stop believing that if we can just fix everyone else, get the perfect job, and make society behave exactly the way we want it to, we will finally be happy. Attempting to control the external world is like trying to smooth out the ocean waves with your bare hands. It is impossible, and the effort will only drown you. The world out there may or may not be exactly as we picture it. But the Buddha advises us to leave that unsolvable puzzle aside. He brings our wandering attention back to the only place we have any real power. The present moment of contact. Reality, in this practical, healing sense, is the living field where feeling, craving, resistance, and release take place. It is happening right now, as you hear these words, feeling the weight of your body, hearing the background noise in your room. This is your universe. And this is where the work of liberation begins. To understand how we become trapped in this universe of our own making, we have to slow down and observe the exact mechanics of suffering. Suffering does not arrive fully formed. It is built, piece by piece, in fractions of a second. The Buddha described this rapid construction process in a teaching called Dependent Origination, which is a detailed map of how a completely ordinary moment transforms into a painful one. Let us look at a very common, modern scenario. Imagine it is late in the evening. You are relaxing at home, feeling perfectly fine. You pick up your phone and open your email. There is a message from your boss, or perhaps a close friend, and it contains only one short sentence. "We need to talk tomorrow morning." Instantly, your relaxing evening vanishes. Your heart rate spikes, your stomach ties itself into a knot, and your mind begins racing at a terrifying speed. You are no longer sitting safely on your couch. You have been transported into a dark, frightening future. But let us rewind that moment and watch it in slow motion, frame by frame, to see what actually occurred. First, there is simple contact. Light from the digital screen enters your eye. Black shapes appear against a white background. At this absolute baseline, nothing painful has happened. It is just raw visual data. A millisecond later, your mind recognizes those shapes as letters, translates the letters into words, and applies a basic context. A message has been received. Even at this point, it is just pure information. There is no suffering yet. But immediately following this recognition, a feeling arises in your body. In Buddhist psychology, the word feeling does not mean complex emotions like jealousy, depression, or rage. Those come later. Feeling means a bare, primitive tone. It is simply pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. In the case of the vague email, the tone that arises in your body is instantly unpleasant. It is a sudden drop in the stomach, a tightness in the throat, a subtle vibration of unease. This unpleasant tone is entirely innocent. It is just an automatic physical response. If we could just let the tightness in the stomach be tight, everything would be fine. But this is exactly where the chain of suffering locks into place. In the next fraction of a second, the mind reacts to that unpleasant tone with craving. Craving is the desperate demand for reality to be different than it is. We often think of craving as wanting something pleasurable, like sugar or money. But craving is also the intense, immediate urge to push away something uncomfortable. The mind feels the unpleasant physical tone and screams internally, "I do not like this. I need to get rid of this. I need to know what this email means right now so I can be safe again. Because you cannot get an immediate answer, the craving mutates into clinging, and the mind frantically starts building stories to satisfy its need for control. Did I make a mistake on that project? Are they going to fire me? Is my friend angry because I forgot to call them back? You pull memories from the past. You project disasters into the future. Within seconds, you have built an entire tragic movie out of 5 simple words. You are suffering intensely. But the suffering did not come from the email. The email is just pixels on a screen. The suffering came from the invisible, lightning-fast transition from an unpleasant physical sensation to a demanding craving, and finally, to an imaginary story. The tragedy is that the same event does not create the same world in everyone. Another person could read that same email, feel a neutral tone, assume it is just a routine update, and go peacefully to sleep. The screen is the same. The text is the same. But the conditions meeting that moment are completely different. Their history is different, their level of fear is different, and their reaction is different. When we begin to see life this way, we discover a profound secret. The most important battlefield of your life is not out there in the world of emails, arguments, and financial stress. The true turning point, the place where you either lose your peace or maintain it, is that microscopic gap between feeling a physical sensation and reacting to it with craving. If you can catch the unpleasant drop in your stomach before it hardens into a story of doom, the chain breaks. If you can notice the tightening of your chest before you open your mouth to shout back in anger, the suffering loses its momentum. You are no longer downstream, drowning in the flood. You are standing on the riverbank, watching the water rush by. There is a profound realization that happens when you finally see this chain of events clearly. You realize that you cannot stop the initial contact. You cannot stop the world from sending you difficult emails, unpredictable people, or sudden changes in your circumstances. You also cannot stop that very first, primitive physical feeling from arising in your body. If someone insults you, your stomach will likely tighten. If you lose something precious, your chest will ache. That is simply the biology of being human. The Buddha never asked his followers to become unfeeling blocks of stone. But while you cannot control the contact, and you cannot control the initial physical tone, you have absolute power over what happens next. The entire practice of mindfulness lives in the incredibly brief, sacred gap between feeling and craving. Imagine that initial unpleasant feeling as a single spark landing on dry grass. The spark itself is small. It might sting, but it is entirely manageable. Craving is the wind that blows that spark into a raging forest fire. When you react to the uncomfortable feeling by demanding it go away, when you start blaming others, judging yourself, or spinning out disaster scenarios, you are supplying oxygen to the fire. Soon, you are surrounded by flames, and you have forgotten that it all started with one tiny, harmless spark. The work of spiritual awakening is learning to sit with the spark without blowing on it. It is the practice of noticing the tight chest, the restless energy, or the sinking feeling in your stomach, and simply saying to yourself, tightness is here. Heat is here. Unease is here. Notice the profound difference in language. There is a massive distance between saying anger is present in my body, and saying I am an angry person. When you say I am angry, you have identified with the emotion. You have become the fire. The emotion is now the lens through which you see the entire world. From that place, every word you speak and every action you take will be colored by aggression. But when you say anger is present in my body, you are creating space. You are acknowledging the weather without believing you are the storm. You become the vast, open sky in which the clouds of emotion are simply passing through. The emotion is allowed to exist, it is allowed to be felt, but its absolute authority over your life begins to weaken. This gap between feeling and reaction is the only place where true human freedom exists. If you live purely on autopilot, letting every feeling immediately trigger a craving and a story, you are not truly free. You are simply reacting to a script written by your past conditioning. Finding the pause, lengthening that microsecond of awareness, is how you rewrite your destiny. It is how you stop passing your inherited pain down to the next generation, and how you finally break the cycle of suffering within your own heart. To see reality in this clear, spacious way is captured by a beautiful ancient word. Yathabhuta. This is often translated simply as seeing things as they are. But a more accurate, dynamic translation is seeing things as they have come to be. This distinction is incredibly important. Seeing reality is not about staring at a static, fixed world. It is about recognizing that absolutely everything in your experience is in a state of continuous motion. Everything arises because of certain conditions, it stays for a while, and then it passes away when those conditions change. Your thoughts, your bodily sensations, your relationships, and your entire identity are flowing like a river. When you truly internalize Yathabhuta, your approach to daily life transforms. Here are 3 practical ways this ancient wisdom changes how you live. Lesson 1 is dropping the demand for a perfect moment. Most of us live with a secret, unspoken belief that one day, we will finally get our lives perfectly organized. We believe that eventually, all our problems will be solved, everyone will treat us well, our health will be perfect, and we will achieve a state of permanent, uninterrupted peace. Because we hold on to this impossible standard, every minor inconvenience feels like a massive tragedy. Seeing reality as it is means accepting the fluid, impermanent nature of life. The pleasant moments are still pleasant, but they no longer carry the heavy burden of having to last forever. You can enjoy a beautiful evening with a friend without ruining it by worrying about when it will end. Conversely, the painful moments are still painful, but they no longer become your entire sky. You know that sadness, like a winter storm, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You do not have to solve the uncertainty of life before you are allowed to be at peace. You can find peace right in the middle of the mess. Lesson 2 is abandoning the cold observer. Sometimes, when people learn about mindfulness, they mistakenly believe they need to become detached, emotionless robots. They think spiritual practice means standing far away from life, watching it happen from a safe, sterile distance. This is a trap. True Buddhist practice is not about withdrawing from life. It is about becoming deeply, courageously intimate with it. You do not meditate to stop feeling. You meditate to feel things more clearly, without the distorting layer of your own judgments. You are invited to feel the rough texture of grief, the vibrant energy of joy, and the quiet hum of an ordinary Tuesday. Freedom is not an escape from reality. It is a release from being completely enchanted and terrified by it. You learn to live fully inside the world, engaging with it passionately, without being dragged along like helpless driftwood in a flooding river. Lesson 3 is meeting heavy emotions at the door. When intense waves of fear, anxiety, or sorrow arise, our instinct is to lock the door. We try to distract ourselves with our phones, with work, or with food. But emotion does not wait for your permission to enter. It enters through the body, gathers momentum, and shapes your vision before you realize it. The practice is to turn toward the process itself. When fear arrives, ask it what it wants. Fear may simply be asking for safety. Sadness may just be asking to be acknowledged and felt. Anxiety might be trying to solve an uncertain future. When you meet these emotions with a gentle, curious awareness, you stop fighting a war inside your own mind. You realize that your emotions are not enemies trying to destroy you. They are just conditions passing through the vast space of your awareness. The Buddha never promised a simpler reality. He never taught that if you meditated enough, the world would suddenly become quiet, fair, and easy to navigate. People will still say unkind things. Bodies will still age and ache. The unexpected will still happen. What he pointed to was something far more resilient than a perfect world. He pointed to a way of living inside reality, with all of its glorious and heartbreaking complexity, without losing your center. He offered a method to untangle the knots in your own mind so that when pain inevitably comes, it does not have to multiply into endless suffering. Seeing reality as it is means stepping out of the exhausting movie your mind is constantly directing. It means waking up to the present moment, honoring the feelings in your body, and choosing not to feed the fires of craving and clinging. It is a quiet, daily revolution that happens every time you take a breath and choose awareness over reaction. This journey of waking up is not something you have to do perfectly, and it is certainly not something you have to do alone. Here at Buddha Coha, we are dedicated to walking this path of mindfulness, healing, and deep storytelling together with you. We believe that by understanding our own minds, we can bring more light and compassion into a world that desperately needs it. If this message brought you some peace today, or helped you see your own mind a little more clearly, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know how you practice finding that sacred gap in your own daily life. Thank you for your time, your presence, and your willingness to look deeply. Until next time, may you find peace in the present moment, and may you see reality with a clear and open heart.